Hello, you are on the Ruslan Belov channel, and this is the daily review of the Ukrainian front. Well, the meeting between Putin and Trump took place, and no deal was made. There were many expectations from all sorts of people, the most diverse expectations. Some thought there would be a ceasefire, a halt to hostilities, a freeze, some kind of arrangement, and so on. But really, who truly hoped that something would change, that there would be some deal, that Russia would actually agree to stop the front at the line of contact? Obviously not. And it is clear that in the end, nothing happened. Putin came, voiced his positions, tried to convey them to Trump. In the end, breakfast was cancelled, the additional expanded meeting was cancelled, Putin flew back, and that was it. That was the end of the meeting. No deal. The fighting continues, and we continue to study the situation at the front. Before we begin, I would sincerely like to ask you to subscribe to the channel. Your subscription helps support its growth. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed. So friends, of course I understand that your head is buzzing from the news and that more details will eventually emerge about what was discussed. But let's not forget about the front. There we also have many updates, and good ones. In just one day, more than 45 square kilometers came under Russian control, and most importantly, the strongest defensive stronghold on the western flank of Pokrovsk was taken, a battle that had lasted for more than half a year. And it ended with a victory for the Russian troops. But let's go step by step. We will also talk about the Dobropolia sector, what Azov units are doing there, where they are counterattacking, what they achieved and what they failed to achieve. But let's begin with another powerful breakthrough by the Vostto group. I really like these updates. You look at them and admire them. Just in this sector alone, the men took control of over 40 square kilometers. The advance here reached 6.5 km. The village of Alexandrograd was captured. Yes, I should clarify, Russian troops had reached it 2 days earlier, but the American cartographers were a bit late with the updates. So technically, the area was taken not in the past 24 hours, but 2 days ago. Still, the result is impressive. This means the troops have now come right up to the administrative border of Dobropolia region, at a distance of just 1 to 2 kilometers. As I said in yesterday's report, now the only task left is to clear the whole area with the village of Kamyshevaha. Then the entire south of Donetsk region in this sector will be under full control. As for the Dobropolia sector, I'll give you a detailed report separately, but let me add an important remark. The fighting there is brutal. Ukraine has brought in many forces and continues to bring more. Russia is also sending in reserves, a terrible meat grinder. Details later. Now let's move to the western flank of Pokrovsk. Here the most important event of the year for this sector of the front took place. The strongest defensive stronghold of the Ukrainian armed forces was captured, the settlement of Udachne. To give you an idea of how fortified it was and how hard it was for Russian forces, they entered the eastern outskirts of the settlement back on January 27th, but only on August 15th did they take full control. 6.5 months of fierce fighting for this stronghold. And as always, the result went to the Russian army. Udachne is now fully and undisputedly under the control of the center group. Of course, another battle lies ahead, for yet another fortified area just 1.5 km away, at Ukraine's largest mine. This is also a strong point, but it's not a settlement on major roads and a railway. The mine can be bypassed, and I think that's what will be done. The main goal here is the 2 roads leading to Pokrovsk. If they are physically cut, Pokrovsk and Myrnohrad will be in total blockade. Let's move on to those cities. But first, a quick note about prospects after the capture of Udachne. From this settlement to the Dobropolia region, border is less than 3 kilometers, and the only thing in between is one small village, Molodetska. As you can see on the map, it is tiny and won't be able to stop the Russian advance. So this is another section of the border with Dobropolia region that will soon be broken through. Now to the situation in Pokrovsk and Myrnohrad, and then we'll move north to the Dobropolia sector. As for Pokrovsk itself, there was no major news. The urban fighting continues in a sluggish manner. There is no large-scale assault like we saw in Bakhmut or Toretsk, or even now in Chasiv Yar. No, here it's slow-going urban fighting. Russian assault teams infiltrate in small groups, 2, 3, 4 men. Some call them sabotage groups, but clearly these are just small infantry units. They try to secure positions, engage in combat, and so on. That's the situation in Pokrovsk right now, but where progress was recorded yesterday was on the approaches to the neighboring city, Myrnohrad. Over the past day, Russian troops managed to advance 1 kilometer from the settlement of Novoekonomikiskoye to the Stakhanov mine. Some Telegram channels claimed the whole mine is under Russian control, but that is not true. We did manage to secure positions in the industrial facilities of the mine, and we partially control it. But the fighting continues. No full control yet. Control of the mine is important because its territory and fortifications can be used as a base to build up forces for the push into Myrnohrad itself. And from the mine to the first streets of the city is just 1.3 kilometers. In my view, the real obstacle here is the spoil heap, Terrakon, to the north. As long as Russian forces do not control this height, the advance will be difficult, because the movement will be under constant fire from Ukrainian positions on high ground. So to make progress both at the mine and in the city, something must be done about this height. As for Rodinskoye, no updates over the past day. Fighting continues both on the flanks and inside the town itself. The main objective here is to cut Rodinskoye off from the north and south, but so far this has not been achieved. Now about the Dobropolia sector. Yesterday evening, the Ukrainian source Deep State published a triumphant post, which was picked up by all Ukrainian outlets. What's the essence? Let's even open their map. They claim to have recaptured the villages of Zolotoy Kolodez and Veseloye and also cut off and encircled Russian troops in Kucheryov Yar. What can we say? First, American cartographers do not confirm this information. Their map shows no updates in favor of Ukraine. That's one. Second, no evidence has been provided other than words. Deep State says they took Zolotoy Kolodez, but where's the proof? For example, when Russian troops captured Alexandrograd, as we discussed today, they not only announced it, but also showed footage with flags in the settlement. That confirmed control, so American cartographers immediately marked it under Russian control, no doubt. But why haven't they marked Ukrainian progress? Because there is no proof, only words. Take our word for it. But there are no images from Zolotoy Kolodez or Veseloye confirming Ukrainian control. What do I know? I know that in the morning of August 15th, Ukrainian Da Vinci Wolves battalion units did break into Zolotoy Kolodez. Fighting was going on there from the morning. That's all the info I have. My contact in this area is currently out of touch, as expected, since he is on a combat mission. The battles there are fierce. So given the lack of evidence from the Ukrainian side, I consider this information doubtful. In fact, any claim without facts should be treated as doubtful. We wait for footage, either from the Russian side to disprove, or from the Ukrainian side to confirm their claims. Only then will we know the truth about what is happening. Honestly, I am sometimes surprised. When the Russian army makes a claim, people immediately ask, where is the footage? But when Ukraine claims something, it is to be believed blindly. Could they have recaptured Zolotoy Kolodez? They could. It's on the edge of the breakthrough. Could they have taken Veseloye? Same thing. It's on the edge of the Russian breakthrough. Possible. But so far unconfirmed. We wait either for my contacts to get back or for footage from either side. Until then, it's just statements. And all these map updates exist only on Ukrainian maps. The American cartographers, who clearly are not on Russia's side, but on Ukraine's, have not marked them. That's all for the situation at the front today. Now let me add a few words on the political side. Western media are already calling the Alaska meeting between the leaders of Russia and the United States a big victory for Vladimir Putin. What changes in the American approach did these negotiations reveal? How did the leaders of both countries assess the outcome? And what can we expect? On the night of August 16th Moscow time, negotiations were held between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump at a military base in Alaska. From the very beginning, a clear difference was shown between how the current White House administration treats Russian leadership and therefore Russian interests compared to the Biden administration. The presidents of Russia and the United States almost simultaneously exited their planes on the runway. The American arrived about half an hour earlier, but Trump waited on board. They greeted each other warmly and drove together in the US president's limousine to the talks. The invitation into the presidential car was a rare gesture of respect from Donald Trump. The current tone of dialogue between Putin and Trump is qualitatively different from what we have seen in recent years between Russia and the United States. Political analyst Timofey Bordachev told Vzglyad newspaper. In this sense, it is enough to recall Vladimir Putin's meeting with Joe Biden in Switzerland. At that time, the Americans made it clear that a military scenario was the most acceptable for them, and that no real dialogue with Russia was on the table, he reminded. Today, however, we are witnessing a completely different approach by both sides to the very nature and spirit of the conversation. It is not mutually exclusive, but rather based on a shared understanding of the need to achieve positive changes in relations. This fact alone caused open irritation among a number of Western media outlets and politicians. My stomach turned when I heard the President of the United States describe Vladimir Putin as his good friend, said Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal. Instead of imposing sanctions against Russia, which Trump had been threatening in recent days, the US is lifting them. This is a deeply symbolic and large-scale victory for Russia, noted Sky News with a tone of clear disappointment. The meeting with Mr. Trump is a major victory for President Vladimir Putin, pulling him out of deep diplomatic isolation, wrote the New York Times, referring to the boycott imposed on the Russian president by the collective West. A boycott that Trump demonstratively broke simply by holding this meeting, and on American soil at that. The talks were held in a 3-on-3 format. On the Russian side, alongside the president, were Foreign Policy aide Yuri Ushakov and Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. On the American side, Trump was joined by Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. After the nearly 3-hour meeting, the Russian and American leaders held a joint press conference, itself a sign that the negotiations were productive. But the main outcome was the very fact that the leaders of the two largest nuclear powers finally met in person to discuss the most difficult contradictions. And despite those contradictions, an exercise in listening to each other, that is how Bloomberg described the talks, which took place in a full diplomatic format and with proper protocol. Russian-American summits have not been held for more than 4 years. The past period was very difficult for bilateral relations, and to be frank, they had fallen to their lowest point since the Cold War, Putin said at the press conference. Obviously, sooner or later the situation had to be corrected. We had to move from confrontation to dialogue. And in this sense, a personal meeting between the two heads of state was truly overdue. Trump had the opportunity, first-hand and in direct personal contact, to hear the position of Russia's top leadership regarding the Ukrainian crisis, to hear it and to respond accordingly. We see the desire of the US administration and personally of President Trump to contribute to resolving the Ukrainian conflict, his willingness to get into the substance and understand its origins, Putin said. Moscow, for its part, demonstrated that as a result of the negotiations, it defended and fixed the fundamental principles that it considers necessary for a just end to the Ukrainian crisis. The most important of these principles, as the Russian president once again confirmed, is addressing the root causes of the conflict in Ukraine. Because, as Putin put it, the events in Ukraine are linked to fundamental issues of our national security. A sustainable solution to the conflict can only be achieved by taking into account all of Russia's legitimate concerns. Most likely, Trump had hoped for more. Even before the talks, he had said that he wanted to achieve a ceasefire agreement as a result. But he did not get it, nor did he get the comprehensive deal he wanted. We could not reach full understanding. Unfortunately, there is no deal yet, the American leader admitted. And yet the very first step toward launching a real dialogue on conflict resolution has in fact been taken. Russia has shown the world its willingness to compromise, to engage in dialogue, and to strike precisely those kinds of deals that the US president is so eager for. I expect that today's agreements will become a starting point not only for resolving the Ukrainian issue, but also for restoring pragmatic business-like relations between Russia and the United States, Putin said. According to him, Russian-American business and investment partnership has huge potential. Russia and the US have much to offer each other in trade, energy, digital technology, high-tech, space exploration, and also in the Arctic. However, the larger the deal, the more it requires long, painstaking work, and there is no doubt that the negotiations were devoted to precisely this work. First, both sides exchanged positions and possible solutions. Second, apparently Trump and Putin agreed on certain specific, though not yet disclosed, frameworks for resolving the Ukrainian conflict. It is no coincidence that Trump stated, "We reached agreement on many points. I will be consulting with NATO allies and with Zelensky." Whether for discussing these frameworks or for pressing Europe and Ukraine to accept them is not so important. What matters is that after this, a second meeting between the leaders of Russia and the United States is now highly likely. At least, Trump publicly expressed hope for it. As Putin himself said in English in response, "Next time in Moscow," which means that the first meeting was by no means in vain. This concludes today's report. Thank you for your attention, and we'll meet again soon.